This is for all of my fellow writers who are worried about creative energy or having inspiration to write, like feeling like you don't have inspiration to write and so you can't write. It's a myth. You can write and you don't need inspiration all of the time, every time you sit down to write. I have talked to a lot of writers who are worried that they can't sit down to write if they're not having this burst of inspiration. And I know that burst of inspiration is so much fun. Actually, I don't want that all the time because that's not how the process works. So, that burst of inspiration is an incredible thing. You get it sometimes when you're starting a new idea or when a bunch of different threads in a story are all coming together and you're like, whoa, I was not expecting that. But if you are a writer who sits down to write every day or has a goal to sit down to write every day or a number of days a week or whatever, then you're probably not going to feel inspiration every single time you sit down to write, or even every day. So, what do I do about not having inspiration? The number one thing is to sit down with a notebook anyway. Sometimes the writing is really slow, and I'm bad at it too. I sit down and I don't have inspiration, and I'm like, I can't write today. Which is actually not true. It feels like it's at the time, and sometimes I don't write that day, but the best thing you can do is just sit down with that notebook or computer or whatever you use. Decide that you are going to write down words. There's going to be a lot of editing. There's always a lot of editing, even for the best writers. I have not talked to one writer who does not have tons of editing, lots of drafts, many hours and days spent on fixing the garbage that they spewed out, because first drafts are spewing out garbage generally. So sit down with your writing instruments or devices or whatever. If you want to be writing that day, you're going to be able to write something. Now, it might not be the perfect wording or the perfect phrases. In my first drafts, I have a lot of cliches, and those are not like something you usually want to leave in the book, just like a whole bunch of cliches. I put them in there when I have this picture in my head of what I want that scene to look like or that character to be saying, and I use the cliche so that when I go back later and edit, I'll be able to have a starting point. The first draft, just sitting down and creating, is starting points for later on in the process when you will be editing and actually doing something with those starting points. It does not have to sound good. It doesn't have to sound okay. Sometimes it barely sounds like English. It can work in the end because you can take those thoughts and those ideas that you got down in the first draft, edit them, and they're going to be great. Don't worry too much about inspiration. If you want to be writing, you're going to be able to come up with words. You always have thoughts going through your head. There are words all around you. You just look around and you see books with words on them. There are other people talking. There are going to be words. Even if you want to switch gears, put aside the project that you originally thought you would work on that day and just write a descriptive paragraph, just so that you're getting words onto paper and you are writing when you said you would be writing, because that commitment is important to keep to yourself. That's what I do when I don't feel inspired or have a lot of creative energy. It's not necessary to have inspiration to sit down and create words that day. It can happen anyway.